Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. This week, naturally, the biggest issue that anyone's talking about, at least in the markets, is the new set of disclosures by Hindenburg. Starting Saturday night, there's been a continuous flow of some information or the other. Now, we can take sides, and everybody is, but the question is, what does it say about our capital market regulator? Has the credibility of the regulator been questioned? And frankly, in my view, what is happening so far is a classic textbook example of how not to handle a credibility crisis. What do I mean? Let's start at the beginning. The manner in which India's market regulator, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, has gone about investigating the astounding rise in share prices of the Adani Group has always troubled independent market observers. And this is going on for a very, very long time, goes to the tenure of two past chairmen. Much before Hindenburg Research, a US-based firm that specializes in forensic financial research and is a short seller, admitted short seller, long before it released a report 18 months ago, the rise in share prices has been an issue that has troubled everybody because these shares rose way ahead of anybody else without commensurate financial performance. Now, let's leave this for a moment because you know a lot that's happened. We've done several video blogs. The fact is, any of you who have switched on a TV ever know that there is talk about Adani, Ambani, the political connections. So everybody assumed that SEBI was going slow, wasn't doing much because of political compulsions. Now, having ignored this huge price rise under various SEBI chairmen, under the present chief, Hindenburg was served a show cause notice for short selling. Now, even a novice investor understands that short selling opportunities emerge only when stock prices soar way beyond a company's fundamentals or even its future prospects. So the explosive new whistleblower document, some would say, is in retaliation for that show cause notice. Be that as it may, we have to stick to the facts of what it says because it's got a bunch of facts, it's got documents, it's got emails, and all this is released in the public domain on 10th August. This has given a new twist to the whole issue and led to a full-blown credibility crisis at SEBI. The question that Hindenburg raised is about the personal integrity and disclosures made by SEBI Chairman Madhabi Puri-Buch, backed by documents which need to be examined. Main thing is the documents have not been denied. In fact, they have been confirmed. What does this tell us? Let's put it in perspective. India today is one of the top 5 capital markets in the world. Where we are concerned, it's a key resource mobilizer of the Indian economy. In fact, the biggest and brightest shining spot for this government over the past 10 years. So restoring confidence in the independence of our regulatory mechanism is of paramount importance today, not by pretending that nothing has happened. What we are witnessing, like I said, is how not to handle this situation. So in the past 36 hours, after the sensational allegations of complete silence from the government and the finance ministry, there's been one statement since then, which is rather wishy-washy, doesn't evoke any confidence. On the other hand, we have a series of statements from those involved. A statement from Madhabi Puri-Buch and her husband, statement from SEBI, statement from the agency, which is at the core of these allegations. Let's start with SEBI. Late Sunday night, SEBI issued a response, which was, if you ask me, shocking. It claimed to address issues that warrant an appropriate response. Now, if it warrants an appropriate response, the response better be appropriate. However, it was far from it. Serious allegations have been made against the chairperson and the regulator itself. So this response cannot be an anonymous press release. It should have come from somebody who is in a position to speak for the regulator, and there are only two, which is a board of directors or the finance ministry, ideally the finance minister. The question is, was there a board meeting? Who assumed responsibility for the statements in the press release? Who checked anything? In fact, exhibiting a completely poor or lack of understanding of the gravity of the crisis, SEBI went and issued an anonymous release suggesting that various actions in the Adani matter have been done and dusted, barring one investigation. So look at what it said. First, remain calm. Fantastic. That's the job of SEBI. That could have been anonymous. Now, the minute it comes to Adani and allegations against his chairperson, there should have been a board meeting, or the finance minister should have said, I have called the board members, I've had a discussion, we have checked the facts, and this is what we are saying. No such thing. Instead, does a blanket defense, questions Hindenburg, points out that it's a short seller, says that the chairman had recused herself in matters of potential conflict of interest, not a word on whether she did so in the Adani investigation. Right? Now, let's come to the government, or rather the ruling party. It seems to have deployed a host of influencers to question Hindenburg's credibility and the findings, and to attack, silence, and discredit anyone who dares to do a serious analysis and comment. Frankly, it is off-putting and it makes you wonder whether you should speak, but this is not the time to remain silent. This strategy will not work unless the government takes responsibility and shows a willingness to conduct a fair inquiry. The pressure will mount, the problem is not going to go away, and you will damage a key institution, which is you will damage India's credibility, both as a regulator and its ability to regulate, and as an investment destination. And we are not that comfortable that we can ignore this fact. So despite clarifications offered by various parties, including SEBI, there are lots of issues that are troubling. They need an investigation. So here's something. It's an indisputable fact today that Madhabi Puri-Buch and her husband had investments in an offshore entity called Global Dynamic Opportunities Fund, which were nested in the same obscure Bermuda Mauritius fund structure which SEBI had been investigating in connection with Vinod Advani and his brother Gautam Adani. Same investigation, same company, nested under it, there are layers. The SEBI chairman and her husband had an investment. So there are questions raised. It warranted clear disclosure, especially when SEBI begins to investigate and the chairperson leads the investigation. Sure, redemption happened, but that redemption process also was strange. Now, let's come to it. Before we look at the redemption, let's look at what SEBI does in terms of standards that it has set for disclosure by regulated entities. Companies, they hold a board meeting, SEBI specifies how quickly things should be reported. Every regulated entity, whether it's an advisor, fund manager, all their employees have very, very, very strict compliance rules. You would expect the rules for SEBI and the chairperson would be that much higher. No, I'm not expecting that. I'm saying they have to at least be on par. And with this in mind, let's look at the allegations. This is a chairperson also, mind you, who told influencers, if you open your mouth and utter a single name, you stop being an educator and start being an advisor. That is the standard. She should have played by similar rules. This means when an investigation that has dominated media headlines, has been talked about in Parliament, has been reported around the world, has involved an unprecedented, not only Supreme Court hearing, but the Supreme Court appointed an expert committee to look at it, to look at specifically SEBI's role. In all this process of 18 months, it warranted disclosure and recusal. Now, recusal is not something new that we are asking the SEBI chairperson. SEBI has a precedent. When C.B. Bhave was appointed as the chairperson, he was ring-fenced in SEBI from looking at anything to do with the National Securities Depository because SEBI had been investigating NSDL when he was its chairman. This did not involve any personal investment by him. Even then, he was ring-fenced. Now, if you're talking about a personal investment and you're investigating a large, very, very large business group, a recusal and disclosure was warranted. Here too, the simple process, which has been done 10 years ago, board monitored committee perhaps comprising of 3 whole-time directors who technically are supposed to be on par with the chairman. The chairperson is supposed to be only first among equals. They could have looked at it. It could have been out, open, transparent. None of us would have had a word to say. We would have approved it. Did not happen. In fact, like I said, not only did Madhabi Puri-Buch lead the investigation, she had a couple of meetings with Gautam Adani when the investigation was going on. Nobody knows what it was. No recusal happened any time during the Supreme Court hearings, the expert committee hearings. And like I said before, the expert committee was specifically examining regulatory failure in contravention of laws pertaining to security market in relation to the Adani Group. Now, subsequently, on April 24, there were media leaks that 12 of these offshore funds, which had pushed up prices, were going to do a settlement. There would be minor penalties. There was a leak. SEBI has not gone public with it as yet. This is 12th of April. Nothing has happened on that. In June 24, SEBI sends a show cause notice to Hindenburg. Why? Because you short sold, you had unreliable sources, what have you. We have a separate video blog on it. You can read it up. SEBI may not even have clear jurisdiction on Hindenburg because it's a US company, but it went ahead and served a show cause notice. This is certainly strange. And it becomes more strange because of Madhabi Puri-Buch's dealings with Trident Trust Company. Now, this Trident Trust Company also is an interesting bit. So what do we know? She redeemed her holdings. First, there are two things. There's a letter from Dhaval Buch, her husband, asking that both of them had a joint account. They were private citizens in 2015. Investment was made there. She had nothing to do with SEBI, all very good. The investments were in a joint account. So in 2017, Mr. Dhaval Buch says, all accounts should be registered solely in his name. Why not saying transfer, sale? I don't know, but these are the wordings in the documents put out. Yet, strangely enough, any of you who opened a bank account or demat account know that there has to be one registered email ID. And many of you who have joint accounts and some of you who are operating on behalf of your wives know how difficult SEBI has made it, right? But here in this account, transferred to the name of the husband, but the email remains that of Madhabi Puri-Buch. She continues to receive investment details. I mean, you can say Trident was based in Singapore. They have sloppy rules. Really? We, the SEBI chairman? Now, here's a document that we are showing, right? Dhaval Buch, February 26, 2018, email madhavipuri-buch@gmail.com. Now, this probably explains why in 2018, she used that email, which was the registered email, for redemption of Dhaval Buch's holdings. Question is, she was then already in SEBI, a whole-time member. So why did the mail not change? And wouldn't this have fallen foul of compliance requirements and attracted penal action in SEBI? Did it not raise red flags? Shouldn't that email have been changed? Should people in that level have known better? After all, as WTM and someone who's been subject to severe compliance in her previous two avatars or jobs as well, surely aware of this. Now let's come to another set of allegations. This is about a consultancy company, again set up when she was a private citizen in Singapore with the name Agora. So there is an Agora Singapore, Agora Partners Singapore, and there's an Agora Advisory Private Limited in India. So just after she became SEBI chairman in March 2022, remember she had finished her term as full-time member, 4 years. Now she's become a chairman. 6 weeks after that, she transferred her entire holding in Agora Partners Singapore to her husband Dhaval Buch. The Indian company, however, she continues to have a 99% stake as of date. And Hindenburg has put out documents. They have got data. In a public statement, Madhabi Puri-Buch and her husband have said these two entities, and the words are, became immediately dormant on her appointment with SEBI. But Hindenburg has released documents that show that they are active. Now, the very next para of that statement is a contradiction because it says Dhaval Buch started his own consultancy practice after having retired from Unilever through these companies. This not only confirms that Agora India advisors were not dormant, But it's unclear who these prominent clients of the Indian industry were who were doing business with him, because this company is 99% owned by the SEBI chairperson, even if it's run by her husband. This warrants disclosures. Where is the income coming from? Simple, it applies to everybody. It applies to members of parliament who are trying to defend things. Now let's come to FPI ownership and disclosure. So the company through which it was done is called 361 WAM Limited. The name was formerly IIFL Wealth Management. This promptly issued a statement. Everybody is saying all is kosher, all is well. What does it do? It reveals the private investments of Madhabi Puri-Buch and her husband, raising a crucial question from Member of Parliament Mahua Moitra. She says if foreign portfolio investment records down to the last natural person, these two people, were made available so quickly by one entity, why did SEBI hit a wall in its investigation, as noted by the Supreme Court, when it came to all the others? Same fund. Remember, the parent fund under which these were nested was the same one. So this one entity is saying, doesn't matter, we're giving you all the names. Others are saying no. Were they asked? Did they actually say no? Did they say we won't give it? We don't know. We know that there's a leak, that this matter is going to be settled. There's a third issue about conflict of interest, about Dhaval Butch's consultancy with Blackstone and REITs. I'm not even going into that. But the ones that I've said are held to SEBI's own standards for others, and they warrant an investigation. How should that happen? Obviously, all opposition parties want a joint parliamentary committee. This, to my mind, having observed so many of them in the past, becomes a political circus and never gets intended results. It just damages a lot of reputations in public. But former Revenue Secretary E.S. Sarma has a better suggestion in a letter addressed to the Finance Minister. He says that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, remember, they're still hearing it, and a new case has been filed to bring a closure to all this. The Chief Justice could nominate a senior member of the judiciary to head an inquiry commission, hopefully with people who have domain knowledge, under the Commissions of Inquiry Act 1952. It would really make sense to accept this suggestion at the earliest, make it a short window, complete it, and do something to restore the credibility of the regulator. Remember, India's national interest is not served by defending one individual or one business group, or blindly defending the regulator. With a market capitalization of several lakh crores of rupees and the savings of countless ordinary middle-class people riding on the market, all have gone through mutual funds. It's imperative that SEBI remains credible and is seen to adhere to rules of compliance and standards that it imposes on all stakeholders. Remember, I'm repeatedly saying the same standards you expect of us, better standards from you. If you agree with this, raise your voice, because this is about us. If you're watching this video, you're most likely an investor, which means one way or the other, your national interest is tied in SEBI having credibility and all this being transparently resolved. If you agree, do share this video and subscribe. Thank you.